All right, welcome to the food tracking tutorial. I'm just going to be hitting on a lot of the basics, but also giving you some things that can help speed up this whole process. So I just want you to look on the bottom left, and I'm going to click on diary. And just a quick note, your screen may look different from mine simply for the fact that you have a different device. This is just on an iPhone. So the app may look a bit different on an Android or other type of device. So click on diary. Here we go, let's get started. Meal 1, meal 2, meal 3. That's how mine's set up, although yours might be a little bit different. I just simply specified this, and this just works better for me. So I'm going to click on add food, and so we can get started with the process. And say, for example, I had some eggs this morning. I'll just type in eggs, and it comes up in my most recent, so that's great. Otherwise, you might find a whole bunch of options. So when you're doing that, let's see. When you're doing that, you just simply click on the option, and then you'll see there's a serving size. It's listed as 1 large, and you can really specify a little bit more, like in terms of if you bought some small, medium, or large eggs, or extra large, whatever it is. So you just click. I already had it set for large, and I had 5, for example. So once I have those metrics put in, I just click on the top right, and it's already in for my first meal. Now moving on I'm gonna actually skip meal 2, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But moving on, let's go to meal 3. And say, for example, I had a chicken Caesar salad. I went out, I was working, I went out to eat, and I had chicken Caesar salad, so let's put that in. And see what comes up. So there's a lot of options here, and there's a lot of different ways to play this out. I mean, first, if you actually see your specific restaurant that you went to eat, then just click on it and then just use that. So say it was at like TGI Fridays, clicked on it. To be honest, there's actually nothing here. All it is just 500 calories. This is just an example of something that I would just click out of. Like, I don't want just 500. It doesn't give you any of the macronutrients, the carbs, the fat, and the protein. So not a good example. And that's the other thing is that it's a great database because it has a lot of different information that people input. It's open source, so people can put their own types of meals and stuff in here. Although that can also be its downfall because there's just so much to choose from. And some of it, like that last one, is just clearly there wasn't much time put into it. So let's check on Subway. All right, so that one looks like a good. That looks like it's got all the data in there. So that looks like a good selection. Now, the only thing with this is that it does have very specific serving sizes by weight. Now, if you took the Subway salad at home and you can weigh it out, that's great. If not, you just have to generally ask people at the counter or go online, specifically to like franchises and chains. They'll have their nutritional info online and find out what is a serving size. Is it really 423 grams? So you'll have to verify that in some way. And if you're just running low on time, just assume that maybe that's going to be a serving size, although who knows, because there could be small salads, large salads. So we'll just click on that to put that in there. So excellent. Now, going back to meal 2, here's one of the tricks to make this whole thing a lot faster. Now, when I do this, I don't actually put in any vegetables. Now, the only exception is that if it's a very carbohydrate-rich type of vegetable, meaning like it's a squash or it's a potato. Otherwise, if it's a cruciferous type of vegetable, very fibrous, like broccoli or nothing well on these examples, like broccoli, leafy greens, onions, garlic, those kind of things, I'm not actually going to put that into the app. Those are very low in calories anyway, and it just takes a lot of extra time and energy to do that, where it is pretty minimal in terms of what they contribute macronutrient-wise. So, they're definitely known for their nutrients, the micronutrients, so you obviously want to get as many vegetables as possible, and also just understand that it's not going to count towards your total calorie goal or your total macronutrient goal. So just eat as much as you want, don't track them, no need to, unless it's a more carb dense type of vegetable. And like I said, an example of that would be like an Okinawa sweet potato, maybe some butternut squash, maybe corn, so things that definitely add up quite a bit. So don't add the vegetables, you'll save some time by doing that. Another thing you can do to make this whole process faster is, once you've used this for a couple days, then you'll have, so I'll click on meal 4, you'll have a history built up of all these foods. And if you're like me, where you tend to eat similar foods for the week, it just kind of depends on what I buy the weekend prior, and when I food prep, I'll have very similar foods day to day. And so that's already saved on here. So ground turkey meat, definitely had that. I can add frequently paired foods. So I had it with an avocado before. I think that's about it on this. So I would just pair those two up together. And so I'd have an instant meal right there that I wouldn't necessarily have to look for again or anything. I know that that's it. Now another thing that you can do is add yesterday's meal. So you see that for meal 2, and that's why I also skipped. So when you add yesterday's meal 2, basically just swipe right to add the meal, and it populates it with everything that I had yesterday for that meal. And so basically it was my post-workout, so I had much more carbs in that meal, and essentially that would be that for that day. So if this is everything I ate today, you can track everything just by clicking on calories remaining, that tab on top, and calories here. So you just get some different screens to see, relative. Here's total calories, it's relative to my goal, so I did pretty well there. Nutrient-wise, these are certain goals that I set, and this is more about percentages and things, and didn't necessarily hit the protein goal, but I did make up the calories in the fat goal. One is not necessarily better than the other. I hit the carbs pretty square on. One is not necessarily better than the other. I just kind of made up this day, so I wasn't really going for tracking that, but you just get the general idea in terms of what the top part means and what a full day looks like once it's all put in there. Another thing I'd recommend just to save time is not to put in your water count unless you really know that you're not drinking enough. And if you know that you're not drinking enough, just because you often have dry mouth, you're often thirsty, maybe you're drinking a lot of other water substitutes, diet soda or something like that, then I would start to track the water. But in terms of overall calorie count, it's not gonna impact anything. So you can track it if you want to, if you know you need to drink more. Otherwise, if you know that you got at least 2 liters in every single day without hesitation, then you can kind of skip on that part. So a very cool thing about this, like I said, it's a very robust app, just a free version, because this is the free version in itself. I'll show you what you can do. So let me just delete, so make some space here. And I'm just going to add food. So basically you saw that I swiped to add from yesterday's meal, but you know what, you can also save meals too. So on this tab, I just clicked on the meals, and all I have right here is the Shakeology meal. Basically, this is actually my breakfast. This is my breakfast that I have, or the first meal that I have literally every single day. It doesn't change at all. So I just made it a meal, and it's just got the collagen protein, it's got MCT oil, and it's got Shakeology, which is just basically a protein nutrient blend. So it's got everything that I need, and it's simple to make it a meal. And then once I do that, I just click on check, and it's already there. It's in meal 2 there. So that's perfect. Now, moving on from that, what I'd say is that, say the next day, because I have that on meal 2, I wanted to have that in meal 1. So I could do a quick add. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong setting. Copy from date, and I'd say meal 2 from yesterday, and click there. I guess that's the wrong meal. So that was actually the meal that I put in before the Shakeology meal. So I guess it didn't get a chance to refresh, but you can kind of see how that works. So I put in the meal there, and we'll go back to today. So it's a very, very simple function. You just press those 3 dots, and you can actually also do it in reverse. So say, for example, because that didn't work out great in my example, but it does work quite well. Let me show you. Press the 3 dots, and instead of the copy from date, I can do a copy to date, meaning that, all right, say I have that from meal 1 on Sunday, because I know that's more than likely what I'll be having anyway on Sunday. So it's already there. There's a lot of functionality in here, just a lot of ways to make this a lot more streamlined and easier. And so just play around with that, whether you actually create the full meal, or whether you do those copy tos, or whether you just even swipe. That can be very, very easy as well. So the next thing is the whole actual process of doing the food prep. And so when you're doing the food prep, there's a couple ways to do it. So I usually do a little bit of food prep during the week. Most of it's done on the weekend, although I have same size Pyrex bowls, and so I create multiple meals, and they're pretty identical, and I weigh them out. So say, for example, I have 3 different Pyrex bowls. I weigh out 300 milligrams or 300 grams of ground turkey in each bowl, so I know it's the exact same. And I'll put in very similar things in each one. Maybe like half an avocado, maybe some goat cheese, maybe some rice if, again, it's around my workout time period. Just kind of depends on what I'm looking to do with that meal. So a couple suggestions behind that is that you just input it in each day. So it would be today, I put the same meal in for, let's see, tomorrow, I do the same meal in for Sunday for meal 2, for example. So you can do it literally that night that you're doing the food prep. The other thing to do, and I've done this as well, is doing the post-it system. So I'll write on a post-it, all right, in this container that's in the fridge, I have 300 grams of ground meat. I have whatever, 100 grams of avocado. So I'll write it on the post-it, and then I'll put that on each container. That way, when I actually eat it on the day of, I can input the data there. And it sounds like I'd be able to remember these numbers, although sometimes I just don't. So I just found that having just a post-it there just kind of helps trigger me in two ways. First, it triggers me to put the food into the food tracker, and two, it triggers me to remember actually what was in the meal, so that I don't have to think or remember or anything like that. So that's not necessarily a quick tip for the app itself, but in terms of just utilizing the app and syncing it with what you would normally do for food prep, those are two things that I would recommend. Now, one last thing that I almost skipped about, it's called Add Food, and this is again for streamlining this process and making it a lot easier, is that once you click on Add Food, you can press on this, it's the barcode icon on the top right, and essentially you would get a food, you'd scan the barcode of whatever the food is, and then it would just pop right on the screen. It is really cool. I actually use that, quite a bit, especially if I'm having snacks or protein bars or things like that, where I actually have the wrapper right in front of me, and I don't have it necessarily saved in this. So I will do that quick scan, and it populates, and it goes right into the meal. Honestly, I use that a lot. It's a time saver. So if you have literally something with a barcode on it that you're consuming, then use that instead of typing it in. That can be more of a lengthy process, finding which one that correlates, because again, you might find like 6 different versions of protein bar, let me be specific here. You might find 6 different versions of a Rise protein bar, just because 6 different people put in different macros, and it could be just because they're different flavors or whatever the case is. But if you have that quick scan and you have that barcode, then utilize it, because it takes you directly to the actual food, the actual flavor, and so on. It's the fastest, best way to do it. And then of course you can adjust the servings as well right on the screen. So if you didn't eat the whole bar, you would just click 0.5. So highly recommend utilizing that for a lot of stuff that you have access to a barcode. Now let me talk about adjusting macros, because you see my macros up at the top. I'll just show you how to do that. So you just click on the bottom right to more, and then you just see right here goals, click on that, and then from there nutrition goals is the first thing to select, and then that's where you do it. So I'm actually going to do this for myself just because I just had a tattoo finished, and so I know I'm not going to be as active just while I let that heal for the next few days. So I'm just going to drop my calorie count about 300 calories or so we'll say 2,400. And then of course, since I'm not going to be as active, I'm going to change the percentages. Now, I just want to let you know what the process looks like, although it is pretty simple, and if you want to get really specific, you could upgrade the version of the app, and then you could actually do specific grams, and that could be cool too. So you can see that's a premium version. For my purposes, I like going off of percents, so I'm just going to adjust the percent, and again, since I'm not going to be as active, I'm definitely going to drop the carbs, and then I'm just going to drop a little bit of the protein, and then make up for it a little bit more with fat to do so. Alright, so we got the 100%, and so I got my nutrients there, and that's what I'm going to be shooting for the next few days, again, because I'm not going to be as active. And let's see, did it go? 2,400. Okay, there we go, perfect. So now it's set, and then it's as simple as that, and then you can see it's adjusted at the top. So now I know that, in this hypothetical day, I still have about 600 calories remaining for my next and final meal. And I can kind of play around, especially if you're tracking throughout this eating process and you're not leaving it all to the end, then you'll have a general idea of how to construct your final meal. So if I look at this, I see the nutrients, I see, I have 27 grams of protein left. I have about 50 grams of fat, 16 grams of carbs. More than likely, I'm just going to just go for the protein and the fat. And that would be something like, just off the top of my head, chicken with goat cheese and maybe a little cut up bacon in the goat cheese and olive tapenade. And I'm just thinking of other things that I can load up the fat content with to hit the 50 grams. So you could kind of play around with something like that, and to cover the carbohydrate base, which I'm not worried about 16 grams. I would just maybe have half a protein bar for desserts, or maybe just a small peach for dessert or something like that, just to cover that gap. Because I mentioned I don't track cruciferous vegetables although I would definitely track fruits just because they are higher carb, except, lemons and limes, don't bother with something like that. But most other fruits that are higher in sugars, for sure track those, and definitely track, again, the carb-rich types of vegetables, like the sweet potatoes, like yams, like squashes. So we're gonna move on. We're almost done with this tutorial. The next thing is that you can actually do a lot of this stuff right on your computer. I mean, you can do all of this stuff on your computer. You have a much more robust interface on your computer. But say, for example, you're doing this at work, you're doing this on your computer, and then you want to switch to your phone because you go out to dinner, and you didn't quite have it sync. Like if you go into your diary, you're like, I'm missing some stuff. For the most part, it syncs automatically. But say you just did something relatively recent, you can check the sync on the very, very bottom. Again, that's in the more. Let's see, 639. Okay, now I'm good. Now I'll input, the new stuff. Last thing, I want you to get in contact with me so I can start to view everything. And so simply do this. Plus, invite friends with the MyFitnessPal username. Click on that, and then the username is just simple. It's just TFLife, and of course your name. And I want to be your friend. So that I can see that, just click invite the friends, and I will see that, and then we'll be connected. So the cool thing about that is that you don't have to actually send me anything. I can just see exactly what you got going on. Like, did you log in your food today? What types of foods did you log in? Did you come close to your specific calorie goals, and so on. So I hope this helped. Again, there's a lot here, although once you kind of dig in, you'll find that it is very intuitive, and it is a lot easier than you might expect, and it will take lesser and less time as you go through this process. One question I had was, how accurate are the choices on the app? And again, to be honest, it's really tough to tell. If you have the actual food and nutrition label in front of you, and you put, say like plantain chips into the app, then you have to be able to see, all right, do you have the right manufacturer, and did the person that already put that data in there, did they put in the actual things that it's according to nutrition facts, the nutrition label on the back of the bag? A lot of times something's missing or it's not quite right. So as I mentioned, for something with a barcode, I would just scan that barcode directly into the app and just have it populate into my food log. Super easy, and that's the most accurate way that I found. And for something like a restaurant meal, just do your best guess. Don't really stress out too much about it. This is where you can really use your hand model in terms of just portion sizes, meaning like a cut of meat is about the size of your open palm, so that would be 3 ounces. And so you just kind of play around with what's on your plate and just kind of use your hand as a guideline. It's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be. It's just for, again, those instances where you're at Paina, you're at the restaurant, you're at a luncheon, and so on. So the next question is, should I measure weigh food before cooking or after? All right, to be honest, I would actually defer to the app for this. So say, for example, you have quinoa and you're not quite sure if you should measure before or after, because it is very different when it's dry as opposed to after when it's soaked in the water. So to get a best read in it, you just type in quinoa into the app. And you'll see, actually, for me, this Kirkland brand popped in. And so I've done this before, and this is actually just the measurement for dry. And so I would measure it dry and then cook it. I would measure it dry and put it into the app itself. So say, for example, I know that I had, half a cup dry, even though I put in a full cup, and I only consumed about half of the quinoa rice after it was done cooking. I would just put that in. And so it's pretty simple. You got the calories and all that for the half a cup of dry quinoa. So just defer to the app, and again, if you actually have a bag in front of you for something like rice or quinoa, just do the barcode scan. Can't emphasize that enough. It just really makes things easy. And so more than likely that nutrition fact label is going to say dry and not cooked. If you're doing something else like meat, because again, that can have a difference between whether it's raw or actually cooked. So we'll say chicken breast. And there we go. I found one that says cooked chicken breast by Purdue. So that could be something I input, or if I already measured it raw, then type in raw chicken breast. We'll see it pops up. So we also have another verify entry into this, and I guess it really kind of depends on the food. So it's more of your preference, and it's also something I would defer to the app too before I do cook it, just to get a better idea, because I want it to be accurate. So that's it. I hope this really helped clarify and make things easier, especially moving forward. So I appreciate that you took the time, and thanks for listening and watching.